What's going on, everyone? It's the Fantasy Football Almanac, back at it with another Fantasy Football video. Just wanted to make a quick video talking about the Dynasty landscape, because it is changing right before our eyes. Players aging out, players getting older all the time. That's why we need to make sure we are moving off of our players a year early rather than a year late. But before I get into the full video, make sure you go down and give this video a like. I'm answering every comment. So you guys have any questions about fantasy football, Dynasty, trades, how to navigate free agency, anything. I want to help you guys all out. I want you guys to win your leagues. And subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on so you don't miss another video. With that, though, guys, let's hop right into it. The first guys I want to talk about are the wide receivers. And, well, it seems feasible that Davante Adams, Kupp, Stefon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill are going to last forever. Unfortunately, they aren't, and I hate to say it because these are phenomenal wide receivers, and I don't want to root against them. I wish I could keep these people on my team forever. But there comes to the point where you get too old to play relevant football for fantasy. You might still be a good wide receiver, but you're not going to be putting up 1,300 yards. You're not going to be having 10 touchdowns in a season unless your name is Jerry Rice. I hate to say it, but look at Julio. Julio Jones for a 9-year stretch was one of the most dominant wide receivers in the league alongside Antonio Brown. I mean, consistently putting up 1,500 yard seasons every single year for the Falcons. Loved watching Julio Jones. He was absolutely phenomenal. 2020 hits. He is still a great wide receiver, but he misses time due to injury. Whether that be from age, whether that be from unluckiness, we don't know. But despite that, still puts up a great showing on a yards per game basis, having 86 yards per game, which is great. That's still elite wide receiver numbers. I mean, to put that into perspective, he would have ranked 8th this year in yards per game in between Jamar Chase and CeeDee Lamb. So, I think although he was injured, I don't think the fall off was necessarily imminent. But then next year, he goes to Tennessee, finally turns 32, and the fall off hits. Whether it be because of old age, whether it be because he went to a new team, I don't know. But in 10 games, 434 yards, 1 touchdown. Not the Julio we know, not the Julio we love. Then the next year after that, plays 10 games, but only starts 5. 24 total receptions, 2 touchdowns, under 300 yards. Disappointing, and it stinks because Julio Jones, again, one of the best receivers of my generation. I loved watching Julio Jones. Once you start showing signs of faltering, like Julio Jones getting injured, like Adam Thielen taking a step back over the last couple seasons, it's hard to be able to get back to that point that you were once at. Let me give it to you another way with some data to back it up. 80% of top 24 fantasy football production seasons came from receivers between the ages of 23 and 30. Doesn't include 31, doesn't include 32, doesn't include 33 for a reason, and it's unfortunate to say. But once you start hitting that age, you start to get a little bit older, and you lose a step, and you start playing up against these 24, 25-year-olds who have much fresher legs, who have not been in the NFL for 10 years. It starts to catch up to you. And I hate to say it again, because I love these players. These are all phenomenal players. But the reason why I need to tell you this is because I would rather see you guys sell a year too early than a year too late on these players. The way I look at it, no matter how phenomenal of a season Kupp, Davante Adams, Stefon Diggs, and Tyreek Hill have, their value is not going up on Keep Trade Cut. Their value is not going up on Sleeper. You're not going to be able to get more from Tyreek Hill a year from now than you are right now. And while there are situations I would definitely advise you to keep these players, if you are in win now mode, you have guys like Derrick Henry and Kupp, fine, sure, stay with those players. But if you are a middle of the pack team, a 6th seed, a 7th seed, a guy who doesn't really have much utility, off a guy like Kupp, off a guy like Davante Adams, all these receivers who are 30, 31, then in my opinion, why not sell? I mean, right now, Davante Adams is 30 and will be turning 31 at the end of this NFL season. Kupp will be 30 during this NFL season. Tyreek Hill is 29 and will be 29 during the NFL season, so maybe you have a little bit more time with Tyreek Hill. And Stefon Diggs will be 30 during this NFL season. Not to say you can't love these players, not to say you can't keep these players. But at the same time, I just want you guys to be wary and not get caught holding the bag on these players that are great but are going to age out. In my opinion, if you could trade a guy like Stefon Diggs, get off Stefon Diggs, and get someone like Devonta Smith, I personally would easily make a trade like that. Because you're going from a receiver who's peak age and peak years are behind them, or maybe they're going into their last 1 or 2 peak years, to a guy like Davante Smith, whose peak years are way ahead of him. I mean, Davante Smith is currently only 24 years old. Stefon Diggs is 29, meaning you're getting a 5-year age difference on a player. I know that might not sound crazy to an outsider, but to people who understand football and how quick you were able to age out in the sport, 5 years is massive. 5 years is everything. I mean, the average age of an NFL player is 26. The average duration of an NFL career is only 3 years, believe it or not. Crazy, I know. Look it up if you don't believe me. But very, very, very few NFL players last for more than 10 or 12 years. You have to be a special player to do something like that. Even if you are a great player, look at Andrew Luck. You retire for other reasons. You retire for health issues. So again, I'm not trying to scare you out of trading away your players for nothing. Please don't do that. Please, please, please don't sell unless you get good value for those players. But again, if you could sell Stefon Diggs, Tyreek Hill for Devonta Smith, why not? It's the same thing at the running back position as well. I mean, look at guys like Derrick Henry, Austin Ekeler, Dalvin Cook. 2 years ago, you could have sold Dalvin Cook for 2 first-round picks probably. You could have sold him for the farm. Austin Ekeler, same thing. You could have sold him for an absolutely massive package. But now these players are going for a lot less because the cliff for running backs is even earlier, which honestly is very unfortunate because these running backs, they get absolutely screwed. They get paid by far the least money. They unfortunately don't matter that much to team construction these days, which really stinks because I love watching great running backs. I think it's one of the most fascinating positions in all of football. These running backs get absolutely screwed. I mean, Dalvin Cook would be off a team right now if the potential of a failed physical didn't fully guarantee his contract for the future with the Vikings. Saquon Barkley is franchise tagged. Josh Jacobs is franchise tagged. The Titans, despite utilizing Derrick Henry very, very heavily and only paying him $12.5 million, want to move on from Derrick Henry, despite the fact that Derrick Henry is arguably the best pure running back in the entire league. The Chargers want to move on from Austin Ekeler. The Eagles moved on from Miles Sanders. The Cowboys released Zeke. These old running backs are treated terribly by the NFL. For better or for worse, I think it's awful. I think the NFLPA need to go in and fix this as soon as possible because running backs are treated terribly and their bodies take the brunt of the beatings. But either way, these running backs at 26, 27, 28 years old are being shipped out of their offenses like cattle for younger and cheaper options. And I can't necessarily say I blame the NFL teams, but it stinks for fantasy purposes and for NFL purposes for these great running backs like Ezekiel Elliott that I love so much. But now the question is, how does this impact fantasy? When should we be moving off these running backs? And what should we be trying to get for these running backs in the first place? So I think for one, you should be getting off these running backs around 26 years old. Look at, for instance, Ezekiel Elliott and Joe Mixon. If you had sold Joe Mixon a year ago when he was 25 going into his year 26 season, you would have gotten a haul. Now after this season, a little bit disappointing. The package that you get is going to be significantly less than the package you would have gotten a year ago. Same thing with Zeke. Zeke this last year was going in the 3rd round of redraft fantasy football leagues. This year he's going in round 10, round 11. It's not even close to the same amount of value. A guy like Derrick Henry now is in the same range as Zeke. And the crazy thing is too, Zeke is only 27 years old. The same thing now that happened to Zeke last year is happening to Derrick Henry. And if Derrick Henry has an injury of any kind or he moves teams, his value is going to go shooting down. And again, I don't want to scare you guys because I love Derrick Henry as a player. I had him 2 years ago in fantasy and he was, although he only played 8 games, it was some of the most beautiful 8 games I've ever had during a fantasy football season. I was in heaven. I'd sit back, relax every week, watch Derrick Henry break away a crazy touchdown. But at the same time, the running back age cliff is real. Derrick Henry's 28 years old. Austin Ekeler's 27 years old. Only 10% of top 5 running back finishes happened from a running back that was age 29 or older, meaning that the other 90% of top 5 RB finishes happened from somebody age 28 or younger. You have some crazy anomalies, of course, but in my opinion, it's much safer and much better long-term strategy to not bet on those type of anomalies to be the leaders of your offense for the long term. Guys like Derrick Henry, guys like Dalvin Cook, well, they could be anomalies. I think the odds that they are low. Maybe Derrick Henry's an anomaly because Derrick Henry's crazy, but I think the rest of these guys are. The odds that they are anomalies, the odds that they play well into their 30s and still put up top 10 fantasy football numbers are extremely low and proven time and time again by data. And as the running back position gets even less important in years to come, these running backs will get drafted later and later in the NFL draft, meaning that you're going to be getting better running backs later, which makes it even easier to replace these guys like Austin Ekeler, like Saquon Barkley, like Josh Jacobs. And again, it stinks. These guys are great players. I can't emphasize that enough. But at the same time, I would rather see you guys get out a year early than a year late, unless you have a team, let's say, for instance, you have a very old team structured around Derrick Henry, Cooper Kupp, and Davante Adams. Then absolutely, why not ride it out? Because you have a year or two left of great production on these guys. Why not win another chip or two, then be in crazy tank mode for the next few years? But again, if you are one of those middling teams, a sixth best team, the seventh best team, that's hanging on to a Derrick Henry, I just don't understand the point of doing that. So I would move on from these players around the ages of 26, 27. Again, if you moved on from Joe Mixon last year, you would be very happy right about now. I actually did it in my main Dynasty League. I am super happy about it. Ezekiel Elliott, if you had moved on. Dalvin Cook, if you had moved on. Todd Gurley, if you had moved on. You would have looked like a savant. You would have looked genius. Melvin Gordon, if you had moved on. You would have looked genius. Chris Carson, if you had moved on. Kenyon Drake, if you had moved on. Le'Veon Bell, if you had moved on. All these... David Johnson, if you had moved on. Latavius Murray, if you had moved on. All these players were great during a certain time period, but they aged out, and it stinks because these were all great players. Todd Gurley's peak was absolutely insane, but the fall off was absolutely there, and for him it happened even earlier. It happened to him at 25 years old. Well, I'm not saying to sell then. Selling at 26, 27 years old, I think, is a general guideline that you should be structured off of, and there are tons of running backs right now that fit that criteria. But as always, guys, hope you did enjoy the video. This was a little bit more of a rant and future Dynasty perspective than it was a scripted video. I hope you guys are okay with that. But as always, leave a like. Leave me a comment if you think I'm completely wrong too, because I am so open to criticism. If you guys have anything that would help me out, help me build the channel, or just points where you think I'm wrong, I'm more than open to talk about it in the comments. I think in this industry, nobody is perfect. Nobody's going to get it right 100% of the time. That's why people like Vegas make millions of dollars. So again, none of us are right 100% of the time. That's why go down to the comments if you think I'm wrong, and subscribe to the channel, turn the notification bell on so you don't miss another video. With that though, guys, as always, have a good day, a good night, and a good life.